Allie found herself lying in the same position she'd fallen asleep. But instead of an old canvas bag beneath her, she found herself lying on a billowing cloud cloud colored a soft lavender, and as she looked around, she saw standing in front of her an equally lavender gazelle. "Hello, Allie," the gazelle said. "I'm Grace. Pleasant dreams?" "Huh? What?" Allie replied as she shook herself. "Am I dreaming?" "I don't know. Are you?" Grace asked back. "Does it really matter?" "No, I guess not. As long as I wake up back where I belong." "Well, that's what I want to talk to you about." Grace laid down so she was closer to the same level with the smaller animal. "We've been picking up signals from you that you're growing increasingly aware of the suffering of other animals." "We? We who?" "I'm on the Council of the Spiritual Frontier. We oversee the entire animal kingdom, and we too have grown increasingly concerned with the plight of animals of Earth. We have developed a plan to take a more proactive role to try to combat some of the abuses and inequities we're observing that are happening as a consequence of the increase in the human species, the two legs, as I believe you refer to them. We think you may play an important part in our plan."
Me?
Hallie replied, dumbfounded by the whole idea.
Why me? I'm no one. I'm just a stray cat working to stay alive, just like the countless other feral animals. What difference could I possibly make?
"Yes, that is a good question to ask yourself," Grace replied. "Here's another one. What difference do you want to make?" Allie didn't know how to answer that question, so she just stared back at the gazelle. Finally, she tried a different tact.
What's this plan of yours?
"Oh, I'm not at liberty to tell you that, not yet. But let me ask you this. What if you could make a real difference with the thousands and thousands of animals that are suffering on Earth right now? Oh, I don't mean you could eliminate all suffering, but you could ease the burden for some, maybe even for many. Would you?" Grace looked at Allie with a penetrating stare.
Well, yes, I suppose so. Sure. Who wouldn't?
"Many," Grace said. "Unfortunately, far too many, I'm afraid. But not you, right? Would you be willing to dedicate your life to it, to a life of selfless service?"
Well, wait just a minute.
Allie said, as she felt the question grip her heart, and she could feel herself backing away from the gazelle.
Why would I do that?
She asked finally, unsure what else to say, and figuring she might gain the advantage by asking her own question. "For the opportunity to live a life that truly matters," Grace replied, unperturbed. "Oh, it wouldn't be an easy life for sure. It would have as much danger and risk as your current life, and even more adventure. The main difference is that you'd be helping out many other animals, not just yourself." Allie thought about what Grace had said for a moment before replying.
You know, you're one hell of a negotiator. You want me to give up the life I have now for even more risk, more danger, and for what? So I can say my life mattered. What kind of deal is that?
"The best deal you could ever hope to make," Grace replied softly, "if you're the kind of cat I think you are."
This is a ridiculous dream.
Allie thought, as she tried to wake herself up, but try as she did, she remained there on the cloud, trying her best not to look at Grace the gazelle, as the questions continued to nag at her. If she was totally honest with herself, there was something about the gazelle's offer that was strangely, maybe insanely, attractive. She finally met Grace's gaze.
Can I have a few days to think about it?
"Sure. The ship doesn't sail until the first of the week," Grace replied with a light smile.
What ship?
"The ship you need to be on that leaves for the Americas on Sunday. If you accept my offer, you need to be on it. Your first mission is on the other side of the Atlantic." And with that declaration, the lavender gazelle evaporated from sight, the clouds following a moment later. Allie felt herself falling and jerked awake, finding herself once more lying beside Beamer on the canvas bag. Beamer opened one eye to stare at her. "Are you okay?" Allie started to tell him about the strange dream, but at the last minute thought better of it. Instead, she replied,
Yeah, just a bad dream. Must have eaten too many sausages.
She turned back over to go to sleep, but the haunting question kept her awake the rest of the night. Despite a restless night, by the time dawn broke, Allie had convinced herself it was just a silly dream, one she intended to forget as soon as possible. Unfortunately, it wasn't that easy. When Beamer and she went out to case the location for their next heist, everywhere she looked, all she could see was the terrible plight of so many animals. From the abused workhorses struggling to pull overly full carts while their ribs stuck out with each heaving breath, to the mongrel dogs and feral cats that were to be found on every street, and down the dark alleyways where they scratched out a meager existence. While she tried to turn a blind eye to it all, Grace's word continued to haunt her. It wouldn't be an easy life for sure. It would have as much danger and risk as your current life, and even more adventure. The main difference is that you'd be helping out many other animals, not just yourself.
Shut up already,
She finally thought, then realized the startled look on Beamer's face that she'd actually screamed it out loud.
What's up with you, kiddo?
Beamer asked as they neared the two-story house of the Lord and Lady Lothrop, repudiated to be one of the most affluent couples in the southern part of London. Doggin had received words from one of his sources that the Lothrops would be at a party on Saturday night, leaving the house and most of Mrs. Lothrop's jewels unattended, except for the servants who would be asleep in the basement.
Oh, nothing,
Allie replied, embarrassed by her outcry.
Just that crazy dream I had last night. Spooked me out a bit. I'll be fine. Let's get this done. I need to get at least one good night of sleep before we pull this off.
Okay, Beamer replied, but continued to look concerned.
You need to get your head in the game. We've got a lot riding on this one. I just got word from Doggin that he expects this to be his largest heist ever. Evidently, he needs it to cover some gambling debts. You've got to be kidding,
Allie replied, suddenly more angry than embarrassed.
We're risking our necks so we can cover a delinquent bulldog's gambling debts. What is this world coming to? Ours is not to ask such questions.
Beamer stopped and turned towards her.
We've got a pretty sweet deal going on here. Let's not blow it. We could be out on the street like all these other poor beasts. You wouldn't want that, would you?
Before she could reply, Beamer continued.
Besides, I've got plans for us. I was thinking it's about time you and I quit pretending there's not something going on with us and go ahead and give in to our natural instincts and drives.
Allie stared at him with a mixture of disbelief, confusion, and surprise on her face.
What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about. Letting nature take its course.
Beamer suddenly looked a little embarrassed himself.
You and I will make beautiful babies, Allie, and with my size and your smarts, there'll be a whole new breed. What in the world makes you think I would ever agree to bring a litter into this world that's already overcrowded with unloved and abused animals? Well, because it's what we do,
Beamer replied simply.
It's what we've always done.
The rest of the day went downhill from there. Allie continued to see the plight of the animal kingdom everywhere she turned, except now she also thought she saw her own babies mixed into the horrors of the London streets. To make matters worse, every so often she thought she'd see a flicker of lavender out of the corner of her eye, but every time she turned in that direction it would disappear. She began to think she must be going insane, and wondered if the high meat diet she and Beamer had been on lately might be laced with something. She ate only lightly that night, then begged off from the typical night of caterwauling so she could go to bed early. She really needed some sleep before tomorrow's caper. But it proved to be another restless night, made worse by a visit from Grace. "Hello, Allie. It's good to talk with you again. What have you decided?" Allie looked around her to discover she was once again among the lavender clouds.
Am I dreaming?
I don't know. Are you? Grace asked back. Does it really matter?
You know, you're pretty good at avoiding my questions.
Grace smiled and nodded. And yet, I'm the one who asked the first question that you've not yet answered. What have you decided? Allie hung her head for a moment, wondering if there was some way to put off this conversation. When she realized there wasn't, she looked up and answered,
I'll do it, even though I don't really understand what I'm agreeing to.
She finished with an edge to her voice. That's right, you don't, Grace replied. Here's all you need to know at this point. Be on the Intrepid tomorrow by noon. That's when it's scheduled to leave port. I'll fill you in more tomorrow. Allie nodded slowly.
You know, you're asking me to take a lot on faith, change my whole life around. Don't you think you could give me a little more to go on?
No, Grace replied. Faith and trust are all we have sometimes. You'll get used to it. And with that, she was gone, and Allie was once again back on Earth, sleeping in the pub's basement. She sat up and looked around at the rest of the crew that had become her family, the family that she was about to let down. But the decision had been made, and even though she didn't like it, she knew it was the right one. Spying Jaco sleeping in his customary place, she tiptoed over to him and shook him awake.
I need to see you outside,
she said, then walked towards the door. Oh, what? You mean now? Jaco replied with a sleepy shake of his head. Allie nodded but didn't say anything else until the two of them were outside.
It's time,
she said. What? Are you asking me what time it is? I haven't the foggiest. Sleeping time is all I know, Jaco replied.
No, Idiot. I said it's time. Time for you to go solo. Tomorrow night on the heist.
Whoa there now, Harry. I really appreciate your show of confidence in me, but I'm hardly ready to pull off a heist on my own, especially not one this important. Not the most important one of the year.
Yes, you are. You have to, because...
Allie paused.
Do I dare tell him the truth?
She wondered. Probably a bad idea, but she didn't know what else to say.
I won't be there tomorrow. I'll be on my way to America.
You're what? No way, but that's my dream.
So, do you want to go with me?
Allie asked. No, not really, Jaco replied. I mean, one day I might want to go, but, well, okay, you're right. It's not something I'll ever really do. It's just fun to talk about it. But you, why are you going?
I have another mission I've been assigned.
By who? Doggin or Beamer?
Neither,
Allie replied.
Listen, it's a long story and too complicated to get into right now. The point is that I need you to cover for me. I know you can do it. I'll be eternally grateful.
Jaco stood frozen in place. Finally, he shook himself out of his stupor and smiled at Allie. Okay, if you say I'm ready, then I'm ready. I'll just have to have faith and trust what you say. The comment stunned Allie.
How did you... Have you been talking? Oh, never mind. Just thank you, Jaco, and thanks for being my friend. I'm going to miss you.
Yeah, we'll miss you too, but hey, you go get yourself settled in America, and who knows, maybe I'll come visit you one day. The two of them nuzzled against each other for a moment, before returning to the pub.